What is going on, RotoGrinders? Dean here. That's Dean 7904. That is the daily fantasy handle. This is the NFL Pick Six show, week one. Super excited about that. Myself, I will be hosting. I will be asking these fine gentlemen many football questions. It's going to be a super fun season. I'm excited. I'm giddy to talk some football. Of course, we have Rich Hribar, returning champions. The gang's back together. Rich Hribar from Sharp Football Analysis. Rich, I'm sure you've talked a ton of football already. For me, this is my very first show. You got to carry me. Daigle's going to carry me as well. What's up, Hribar? How are things in your world? How excited are we about week one?
Yeah, dude, good. We made it week one. Now we can actually talk about things that are actionable for at least 4 days instead of talking big season-long hot takes. So it's always fun. I've had my fill of season-long tweets that people are just looking to make receipts on and to actually talk about games. So here we are. Happy to be back with you guys. We talked about our show. I'm the longest tenured person on this show now. This is my fifth year. I'm the only person that's made it all 5 years. So I'm getting old, man.
Yeah, you are the constant for sure. Hey, before I get bringing Daigle, I'm curious. Give me a couple. Fire off a couple of your season long plant flags. Oh, you don't want to put them out there. They're on your Twitter.
Did you listen to a word I just said, Dean?
Well, but I'm curious now. I want to be able to point to the victory lap 6 weeks from now. The internet is forever. It's already out there. All right, fair enough. Daigle, you guys know him, of course, for NBC Sports. Daigle, I believe you were just on a podcast previously. You were talking, was it 4 for 4? I believe you were on. You're out there in Vegas having yourself a good time, drinking, kicking back on Grandpa's cough medicine. What is that? What was the drink you're drinking? Some kind of cucumber concoction?
It's literally a gin and cucumber martini. I don't know the exact recipe, but I know the individual at the Mexican restaurant downstairs makes them splendidly. And my main event partner actually ran downstairs to get me another one while we're recording. And that's what's happening here. Nonetheless, I will say so like Reeves, I'm tired of talking about season-long outlooks, saying something 3 months ago, and then no one has a receipt on it. But I'm excited to join this show because it's been so long to talk matchup by matchup analysis. And this is the show I go to the NBC company bigwigs and say, this is the one show I want to do because y'all are my friends. I genuinely love doing this show. I never wanted to die. And I'm so happy we're back for one more year.
Yeah, I'm super excited as well. And like I was saying, this is my very first show. And as a predominant DFS guy, I have not been digging in the trenches and checking all sorts of reading into every single storyline. 80% of them don't come to fruition. And
you don't want to trust us. You don't want to.
I don't. And I'm trying to make a conscious effort. I know it sounds kind of dumb to almost collect a little bit less information, if that makes any sense. Mm-hmm. Yeah, because information overload and all of a sudden becomes this big old groupthink. And so, respect to people I respect, listen to those kind of people, and just kind of put blinders on to some extent as well. I have a different DFS approach this year. So,
yeah, I think for DFS, that's a great angle.
Absolutely.
Especially for week one, because week one is the week where everybody thinks they know exactly, well, this team's bad. This team is good. And this team's got a great offense. Their defense, we think we know, we're going to be right sometimes. Hribar, he's right. Check it, get the receipts. He's going to be right in all those, I'm sure, on the old Twitter machine. Daigle, did you want to have any you want to put out there? Any bold stances?
Oh, no. I'm not kidding when I say genuinely both of us are just tired. Dean, I'm not kidding. It has been since May that we've been writing the same thing over and over again. It just all you do is copy and paste because even the preseason, those things that happen, I would say 90% of them happened in spring OTAs if you were paying attention. So it's not really anything big changed minus injuries. So we had a couple frantic days, but overall there's just nothing. Even though I am somewhat envious if your home league waited until Friday or Saturday to draft. In that case, good for you. You have all the information you need.
This is the NFL Pick Six show. If you guys are not aware, this is how things go down. We pick 3 games. We focus on 3 games, break them down, dig into them fully. And then we kind of run 3 of the most important games from a DFS perspective that we think are, I guess, Daigle, you're the one that you generally pick them, right? I think you're kind of the lead on that.
Yeah, I took the lead, but it's only because I get kind of excited picking them. And initially, I think like Reeves said, he's been here for 5 years, and initially it was always the 3 highest totals. But y'all know I'll sometimes get a little mischievous and throw in a game that I think the total's far too low. I probably didn't do that this week. Maybe I threw in one sneaky game there. But once we get to positional plays at the end, which I'm sure you're about to say, Dean, the third part, the second half of pick 6 is quarterback, running back, and then hybrid wide receiver tight end positions for DFS. That's where we're going to get a little sneaky here.
I was 100% sure Daigle was going to pick Jets Panthers.
I didn't know if you wanted to talk about it.
I was trying to see what games in my head, like, all right, what games is he going to pick? And I was like, I bet he goes Jets Panthers because
it is a good game.
That's definitely in your wheelhouse.
Yeah.
I play the same game. Like I like to yield and just try to guess. Like I usually get 2 out of 3 right. There's just like one curveball. But the 3 games we're really focusing on.
It's week 1. The people have to get to know us. Maybe I'll throw in some curveballs next week. We'll see. The horizontal tees, they have to keep coming back.
There you go. Arizona, Tennessee, we'll be breaking down in a second. KC, Cleveland, the Bills and the Steelers. Should say we focus on the main slate. Dallas, Tampa on Thursday night. We're not talking about the Sunday night game. Chicago and the Rams. We're not talking about Monday night. Baltimore and Vegas. Not talking about just the main slate we have going down. Well, Daigle, you're the one that picked the game, so let's lead it off. You can open up Arizona, Tennessee. Tennessee's a 3-point favorite here. 52.5, big total. The AJ Brown, are we concerned about this? Is it actually like a real just sort of a rest day? I think that's kind of sort of something interesting. I don't want to freak out about injuries and that kind of stuff on a Wednesday, but I guess it's worth throwing it out there that it exists, I think. Start talking about that Tennessee offense, and are we scared about AJ Brown just getting a rest day apparently?
Well, one, I'm confused why the lamps at Planet Hollywood Hotel, one is this color on my face and the other one's that color, and they're not the same. 2, Ryan Tannehill is interesting. He is the player basically that was the tier breaker between Trey Lance, Trevor Lawrence, because he also offers rushing floor, but has also averaged the second most fantasy points per drop back in the 26 games he played under Arthur Smith. That, of course, is a big key. When people hear volatility, they always think negative, but it's also correlated to positive. It just means we don't know, and it could go in either direction. And the fact that Smith is no longer there, Derrick Henry with 827 total touches the past 2 years, even though if you ask me like a player to bet against fading with that amount of touches, it would probably be Derrick Henry, honestly. It doesn't seem like he's ever going to go away. And so there's just a lot to take in for this offense as a whole, especially since they've banked efficiency in that time, and perhaps it doesn't happen now. But overall, for the Titans offense, it's also a secondary we are not scared of. Their number 1 corner, Byron Murphy, a 2019 second-round pick, who is at best, league average, whereas their other 4 corners behind him aren't even beyond 4th rounders. It is the 4th round plus, right? And so it's no one really you're scared of, no one that can even contend against AJ Brown, who, like you said, rode a bike on Wednesday. We're not just sure. And Julio Jones, who in 10 career week 1 season openers has averaged 6 catches for 100 yards and 21 fantasy points. And that may seem like a narrative, I know, but also I consider it a pertinent split because Julio Jones, even last year, has always been great when healthy. And when is he the healthiest? Of course, week 1, since he's played the veteran card the past 4 or 5 years and not participated fully in training camp and preseason games. So that is my take on the Titans offense, is really that everyone is volatile, and that could go in either direction, which I know isn't a hard stance, but literally it could be whatever or the exact opposite that you're wishing for.
Yeah, your thoughts, Hribar. It feels like it's going to be kind of a game of whack-a-mole to some extent, but like somebody's going to go off, and it's pretty thin. Like the target tree is pretty thin. It's going to be Brown, it's going to be Jones, and if it's not one of those two, it's going to be Henry. How do we figure this out, Hribar? And like, who do we prefer amongst the receivers? Do we care about, what cornerback matchup is? And I know people obsess over that stuff, and I'm sure we'll talk about that throughout the season, our various degrees of how much we care or don't care. But if you had to pick one amongst those 2 receivers, who do you prefer this week?
I mean, it's a Sophie's choice if we're getting into it. So one thing about this week is interesting is because the pricing was out so early, typically week 1. There is no limitation to what you can do this week, just about. Like if you want to play a player, you can play him. If you want to play 3 really good players, you can play them. It is not really difficult on either site with the way pricing is, especially on DraftKings with the way the wide receiver pricing is. So we are going to see a lot of flat ownership week 1, I believe. There are a lot of plays on the board. So I think we're going to have probably not a lot of players that really spike, 30% ownership over, in that area. We're going to have a really dispersed pool of players. Now, the interesting thing about this is from a leverage stance, we always typically look at the Titans as a home favorite and want to play their passing game as leverage. Everyone wants to play their passing game. And now we're in the inverse pocket now where Derrick Henry is going to be way under-owned versus the passing game in a game where they're at home. They've got a 27.5 point team total. Also, when you look at this game, it's tracking to be almost 90 degrees at kickoff. And if you look at week 1 games that have been over 85 degrees, especially in the recent years, these games have all been like 50 plus points. So, I mean, we've got a chance for Derrick Henry running against the gas defense in 90-degree weather. There are plays everywhere in this game. Find me a player you don't like in this game. We could probably have that conversation because everyone's on the board. Dale kind of hit upon the situation the Cardinals in. Darqueze Dennard goes on IR. Malcolm Butler goes on the retirement list. They have one player in their secondary that played more than 81 snaps last year in coverage, and it was Byron Murphy, second-year player. They have Robert Alford, who didn't play last year, a fourth-round rookie, and Marco Wilson, who was awful in Florida his senior year. Something named Ty Gowan and Luke Barco. I mean, these aren't even real people. They sound like A-team members or A-team villains.
They're Madden franchise creative players in the 30th year, yes.
I mean, it really is kind of just like, who do you want to play? I mean, you look at it, and they don't have anybody on the back end to guard either of these players. Both guys are alpha prob potential, could all go off. And the other side too, find a player in this game you don't want to play. Maybe James Conner. I mean,
AJ Green.
I mean, if you said
people are going to play him,
if you said I want to take a shot at DJ Green, listen, Kyler Murray in this game is set up just as well. One, he's a road quarterback, so he's going to have probably more predicted value, right, in this game. Before he got injured last year, he had the most points in NFL history through 10 weeks of an NFL season. He averaged 29 fantasy points per game. I believe he's the QB1 in redraft this week. And if you look at in games that he's played against subpar defenses, and the Tennessee Titans were 27th in pass EPA, and the only upgrades they've made were getting a 32-year-old Janoris Jenkins. Kyler Murray in those situations against bottom half defenses has averaged 260 passing yards per game, 7.8 passing yards per attempt versus 6.4 yards per attempt and 220 passing yards per game otherwise. I mean, this is a bonanza. Play him if you got him situation. You can game stack this game a million different ways. There is not a player I don't think that you could really kind of talk me out of, except for maybe one of the Cardinals running backs being road dogs. But even on DraftKings, Chase Edmonds is 4,600. There is at least some stacking potential with him too. It is just wild, the potential of this game. It's gonna be the chalkiest game, but even as I say chalkiest game, the ownership's not going to be wild this week. No one's going to break the bank in ownership. There's just too many plays on the board.
There's so many players that are cheap. You mentioned, like, I talked about AJ Green, like Rondell Moore is still a minimum at 3K. Like, he's not even, I think Moore is the better play over Green when you consider, well, everybody's going to look cheap. That's the thing. When everybody's cheap, and then it throws the whole thing off. You really have to like your lineups this week. It's hard to make a lineup this week and not like look at it and say, this has a chance. If you're making lineups you don't like, you're doing something wrong. You can make distinctly contrarian lineups and still like your lineups. By the way, the tight ends, we're not playing the tight ends, right? How about that? We can throw those away.
I mean, you're not the Cardinals guys.
Yeah. I guess Ferkser.
Well, I mean, Ferkser only played on third downs and passing snaps in the preseason. Like the one time he came onto the field in 12 personnel for Tommy Hudson in the preseason was when Hudson actually got injured in the first quarter. And then when Hudson came back in the second quarter, Ferkser got taken off the field. Having said that, you have to understand the situation. The Cardinals were still first in neutral game script and pace last year. So like, of course, this is a game the Titans need to keep their foot on the gas and throw the ball as well. So like, although we perceive Ferkser's role, like it probably increases because of the game that's happening right now. So like, why the hell not?
Yeah, I mean, 3-2 on DK, and he's 4-7 on FanDuel.
And of course he has a ceiling because he's been a good player. Like he's been a good receiver.
And I mean, this is one stat that I've heard over and over again is about Chase Edmonds, but 1 carry in his career inside the 5-yard line. Mm-hmm. And, touchdowns matter. Touchdowns are important. And, the most important thing, I don't care about your talent, right? It's opportunity. Just you got to be on the field, no matter how good people may think Chase Edmonds is. Maybe he's great. Like he's got a lot of talent. You got to get on the field. And if you're not in the field, you can't score. So I don't know. And do we know, is Connor presumably going to be the goal line guy? That seems to make sense. But I guess we have to see it first, Daigle, as far as Connor and Edmonds is it even worth messing with as far as week 1? Of course, if you're running out 150 lineups, sure, you can get a piece there. If you're doing a little game stack, I get it. But is this something we have to dig into right now?
In the preseason, it was still, and training camp reports, it was still Chase Edmonds is like the 70-30 guy. And maybe most likely James Conner is the goal line third down back. But again, that's most likely. We don't know. For the volatility reason, now is the time you play him. But like also, I'm more concerned about Chase Edmonds because Rondale Moore had a 1.3 yard depth of target in the preseason. And that's not even a negative against him. Like that's how you want to use him because you want to pound him volume because 71% of his collegiate receiving yardage came after the catch. And so even if Cliff Kingsbury, whether he's doing this intentfully or as a mistake, the fact is like Rondale Moore cannot be used incorrectly because this is what he's done for his entire career. Also to have 9 targets and 3 carries on 44 or 47 of his preseason snaps from the slot. Like he's the guy who takes away targets from Chase Edmonds too. And that's more or less why I worry about the running backs in the situation, not because of the battle they are in themselves.
So Moore is kind of like an extension of the running game, like wide receiver screens and a free point on DK, basically. Is that what you're suggesting?
In my player take that I've been doing the past 5 months of my life, yes, that's what I believe.
Yeah, so there are 3 rookie wide receivers that are 3K on DK.
Yes.
Rondale Moore, Elijah Moore, and Terrace Marshall. I believe Rondale Moore is the best play of the 3. I believe Elijah Moore is the highest ceiling of the 3, but he also comes with a little bit of volatility in that game. I think Rondale Moore, with like we said, he's Deebo Samuel, he's LaVisca Chenault. He's going to get these free touches on Y mesh and screens at 3K, and you're going to get some rushing attempts in there as well. So if you just get in the paint, I mean, I think he's got great floor and great upside. He's viable in cash, extremely at 3K, and he's even a stacking partner in this game in a game stack environment. Like I said, I even think on DK, like I said, when you look at a 26-point team total for the Cardinals as a road dog, they're still going to be winging it. And like, if that is the role for Chase Edmonds at 4-6 there, like I'm not playing Rondale Moore and Chase Edmonds on FanDuel, but I think on DK, they still do absolutely fit, kind of what you would do in this game. Like there's unique ways to stack this game all over because there really aren't guys we can objectively say, yeah, I don't want to play that guy.
And it's a unique situation. Like I almost wish Elijah Moore would have been healthy all year because then we could have guaranteed his ownership would have been the highest. Like he was paying the NBC Sports Edge bills for 2 months because anytime he was at training camp, like there was a blurb to be written about him. Connor Hughes, the Jets athletic reporter, even said like he showed up to training camp every day trying to watch someone else and he couldn't watch anybody else because Moore was always making a splash play. Whereas now instead, not even more Rondale Moore. Everyone saw Terrace Marshall tear up the preseason because they played him with both the first string offense, that one game they played, and the second string offense. And you know what a first round graded receiver does when he's healthy? He tears up second string defenses, and people remember that. So like, that's why I think the ownership now is a little misconstrued. Having said that, you have ownership projections on your side, Dean. Like I would think maybe Elijah Moore still comes in higher than the rest.
Okay, so I have it pulled up right now, and bear in mind, it's Wednesday night. We're multiple days,
yes.
Lots of stuff that's going to change. We currently have Rondale Moore at 3.4% owned. I think that's wrong. Terrace Marshall at 1.5%, also 3K. I think that's wrong as well. He's getting a lot of buzz. I'm just trying to see. Oh, Callaway. We have Callaway at 36% at 3. He's on a still minimum. He's 3.4K with New Orleans, and obviously a lot of targets opening up with Thomas being gone. But there's a quarterback wide receiver matchup we have to talk about. Marvin Jones is another one of those cheapies at 3.6K, and Pittman is 4-1 at 19.7%.
Yeah, DraftKings just has a slew of dudes that are under 4K.
Like all of them. Yeah.
I will say this though, on Wednesday, I think I'm willing to say on Wednesday pretty firmly on DraftKings, I believe a lot of people will be playing these cheap receivers and jamming in Dalvin Cook with Christian McCaffrey or Alvin Kamara with Dalvin Cook or Christian McCaffrey. And you can still get an elite receiver at 7K-ish around those guys because Kyle Pitts is 4.4 too. I do believe that Derrick Henry on DraftKings will be single-digit % owned.
Well, that's the thing. The weird thing with Henry is he's more of a FanDuel play. He doesn't catch the ball, doesn't get the full point, for PPR. And
but he has legit PPR ceiling. Only Christian McCaffrey has more 30-point PPR games than Derrick Henry over the last 2 years. He legit still has a PPR ceiling because he scores so many touchdowns.
He busts off that 80-yarder. Who cares if he doesn't catch the ball 3 or 4 times?
I'm just saying we have the same argument multiple times here where Derrick Henry's chalk, and we say the pivot is the passing game. Literally, we have the one time everyone's on the Tennessee passing game.
I ran 100 or so optimals. Again, this is Wednesday night, grain of salt. And this is on FanDuel. And FanDuel, this is where the scoring system favors Henry more. They prioritize touchdowns. He scores touchdowns. They, subdue catches. And he landed in 52% of the lineups. Derrick Henry, that is.
So I'm looking at RotoGrinders projections. They have Derrick Henry projected for the 5th highest points on the slate at running back. And that's behind Austin Eckler, who now may not make it. And he's probably going to be single-digit owned. He's going to have less than half the ownership of those 3 guys I named off, Cook, McCaffrey, and Kamara, because it's so easy to get 2 of those guys. Hell, I'm doing it. I'm going to play those 2 guys. I'm going to play 2 of those 3 guys easy. I'm just saying from a leverage stance, it is a spot where Derrick Henry makes a lot of sense. Huge home favorite in the heat, 4th quarter Henry.
And honestly, like, you have the numbers on your side, Reeves. I don't have these right now, but we know that Ryan Tannehill and Derrick Henry spiked together. They have multiple times, including last year and the past 2 years. And so it is very interesting because there really isn't, perhaps is the time where Derrick Henry's ownership percentage as well as production is a good middle situation. It's usually either you fade him and he buries you, or you don't play him and he kills you, because it's either one or the other. Like immense 20+ point games, like you mentioned, or single digit points game. Yeah. We're at that number, 8-9% roster, right? That's actually a good middle ground for Henry. If he reaches like 16 to 18 points, you would feel very safe with that.
I should say I was not using like the RotoGrinders projections. I was using, you can plug in Derek Carty's, the Blitz. And those numbers are going to be different. So maybe that's why we're looking at 2 different things as far as.
Well, I'm also not, I'm speaking strictly from how I believe people are going to approach building lineups on DraftKings this week because of the wide receiver values, whereas FanDuel, it's a lot different. Like you don't have the same opportunity to play min-priced floor PPR receivers on FanDuel. There are values on FanDuel, but it's not as abundant. There's not a plethora of floor plus guys like there is on DK. I just believe on DK, because the receiver value that has opened up over the course of the end of the summer is that it's going to be so easy to play 2 of those top 3 guys. Those 3 running backs, I believe, are going to dwarf the position in ownership: Cook, Kamara, and CMC.
The interesting thing is that on DK, traditionally, like in your cash games and your floor games, you get as many opportunities. You want to lock in all the touches, so you have like a 3rd running back. But what I'm seeing, the optimals are spitting out because of the conversation we're talking about, how wide receivers are so cheap.
You can get Stephon Diggs with those 2 guys. Like, it's not even hard.
You play 4 receivers, 1 Devontae Adams, or like the Diggs, like you said, and you're still getting, Cook, or you're getting CMC. It's, there's a salary cap, but not really. Like there is. You can't get everybody, but it's you're going to get really just monster teams. Like, don't get too comfortable with the way the salary cap is right now. It's going to get tighter as the season progresses. All right. Let's move on to game number 2 on our 3 games that we feature. Kansas City, the Chiefs in Cleveland. Cleveland's getting 6 points, big monster total, 54.5. I'm going to yield the Reeves here in this one because this is your hometown. Is it your hometown team, Cleveland? Your current team in Cleveland. Talking about the Browns versus KC.
Yeah, I guess technically wouldn't the hometown team be in Baltimore now? I mean, not to rub anyone the wrong way, but I mean,
too soon.
Hey. But I think that the interesting thing, I think this is a really good game. It might end up being a real better football game than fantasy game, but I think there are a lot of great storylines heading into the season for both these teams. One is, I think the story that happened last year is just how teams approach trying to defend the Kansas City Chiefs. They faced more 2 high safety looks than any team in the NFL last season. No team ran more cover 4 in the season last year than the Browns. Now the Browns were kind of forced to do that because they just had so many injuries on defense. They had to plug so many holes and have so many band-aids over their coverage unit, especially their safety play. Everything's been updated. They got John Johnson, Grant Delpit. They revamped their linebacker. They added a good coverage linebacker, Anthony Walker. They had Troy Hill. They had Jadeveon Clowney up front. They get Andrew Billings back, who sat out last year. It's going to be a completely different defense. So it's going to be interesting to see how they approach defending the Kansas City Chiefs, because if they're going to sit back and play a lot of 2 high safety and cover 4, no player in the NFL had more receptions against 2 high safeties and cover 4 than Travis Kelce last year. He had 7 or more catches in his last 11 games played last year. That is the second most in NFL history, the second longest such streak. And Travis Kelce is an already great player. If you're going to sit back and play 2 high safeties, it's going to take an already great player that is dominant in that area of the field and just accentuate him. And that's what we saw last year. So, and the other element that too is if teams come out and do that, the Chiefs have revamped their offensive line a little bit And if you're going to sit back and play coverage against them, they're probably going to run a lot more than they did last year too. They started to do that last year and the offensive line deteriorated them. You remember the season opener against Houston. Houston did that and they just ran all game. Patrick Mahomes had won his lowest ADOTs all year in that game. Then they played Buffalo in the rain, and Buffalo played 2 high safeties all game. Again, they ran on them all game. And then their offensive line kind of deteriorated afterwards. Clyde Edwards-Helaire got injured after that, and they kind of moved away from the run game in those situations. The other thing that they did too is while teams wanted to protect themselves from giving up the deep ball to Tyreek Hill, the Chiefs, being a smart team and forward-thinking team, said, we're going to change exactly how we use Tyreek Hill. The first 9 games of the season, he had almost a 15-yard average depth of target, 14.6 yards, and he averaged just 6.8 targets per game because he was reliant on downfield shots. After that, they said, hey, if you want to sit up high, we're going to take our best player and move him. His ADOT dropped down 11.5 yards. His targets went up to 11.3. He became more of a yak volume guy, which is absolutely terrifying for a guy as talented as Tyreek Hill is. Tyreek Hill, the big rub against him is ADP pairs was he was a guy that get the target volume compared to the Devontae Adams of the world, the Stephon Diggs of the world. You give Tyreek Hill double-digit targets per game, we are cooking with pure gasoline, and that's what happened. So, I mean, I am very curious to see how teams approach trying to defend the Kansas City Chiefs. I don't believe the Super Bowl was indicative of a way like teams can replicate success because you have to have a front four that can get home consistently like that, and this also is the same offensive line we saw in the Super Bowl. I believe that was just a one-off unfortunate situation for them, and they ran into the worst opponent at the time to exploit that weakness in that game. So I am very curious to see how teams approach defending the Kansas City Chiefs coming into the season.
Daigle, what do you think? How's Cleveland going to approach this? How are they going to try to defend or suppress Kansas City? And who's going to best take advantage of it?
Yeah, it wasn't just a defensive effort either. Like just the fact that Chiefs lost both their starting tackles before that Super Bowl was meant everything. Whereas recall this game that happened in the divisional round last year, the Browns did pass at a 64% rate in neutral game script, but also it was thrown out of whack from the beginning. Just everything that had happened. The Chiefs had 4 possessions in the first half and they scored on all 4. So by the time the Browns came out of the locker room, they were down 19-3 and had no choice but to literally do everything they don't want to do. They had to throw the ball. And just the fact that all of those defensive additions in the offseason that Reeves mentioned, not to mention going back to the game script they want to do, like even in that game, that total was 55.5 and they combined for 39 points. I think that's exactly the game they want to play because when they did have the ball in that game, they took per established runs, Pat Thorman, 36 seconds in between snaps. They were literally hogging the ball and trying to keep it out of the hands of Patrick Mahomes, even though, like I said, he scores on limited possessions because it's Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs offense. But that's what they want to do. And so I think they will try to grind it out and run it down their throats. And I genuinely think they'll have a much better chance of doing so now that everyone is back healthy and at full force. So, betting wise, this is not a betting show, but betting wise, I may have a little bit on the Browns +6 and the under, and I'm quite confident in the Browns here.
Betting on the under, man. That's betting against fun.
Oh, it's dumb. It's stupid. I know.
Yeah, but I mean, look, they pumped that number up pretty high, 54.5. What about the Cleveland offense, Dale? Do you like Beckham coming back? What was it, an ACL? I believe they're saying he's recovering miraculously, and the reports are good. If you want to bring back, you're playing Mahomes and Hill or something like that. Beckham seems like the perfect bring back. Is that something we're interested in?
I generally don't have a take. That's why I'm curious if Reeves has a take on the offense. Like we know that in the 6 healthy games Beckham played last year, he led in all the categories you want to chase. Like he only averaged 14 fantasy points per game, which is not what you want from a player drafting with such high draft capital in fantasy or paying up for in DFS unless the salary gets that low. But overall, red zone targets, end zone targets, target share, air yards, like Baker Mayfield was throwing to him. It was more of an anomaly. And the fact that their schedule got easier is that Baker Mayfield broke out without Beckham. Do not buy in to that lazy take that the Browns are just better without Beckham. And also, you're never going to go this route because, Kelsey's 8,300 on DK, for instance. There are a lot of cheap guys that DK got wrong who are probably going to play most of the snaps that you'll just shove into cash games to make sure you get CMC and Dalvin Cook. But also, like Austin Hooper was second on the team in targets, and that's when he was healthy, by the way, before he went through that injury and COVID stretch, whenever Beckham was there for 6 games. So I don't really have a strong lean. I think Beckham would be the play overall. I would just say that perhaps we are underrating. And again, he's probably not going to be in any of my tournament lineups since I think this game is going under. But I think we're underrating the ceiling that Nick Chubb has, because when he came back from injury, he did actually out-touch Kareem Hunt 183 to 119 from that point forward, and a much larger touch share. And in the postseason, had 9 targets to Kareem Hunt's 2. They were basically letting him play third downs more often. And so he does have a higher ceiling than I think we perceive long term. But in this one game, DFS, I probably won't have much of him this week anyhow.
All right, your thoughts, Hribar, as far as the Browns? And yeah, if they're going to be trying to play keep away, I guess Chubb is interesting, and maybe just play Chubb solo. I don't know, or play Chubb with just Hill and not necessarily think Mahomes is a monster game or something like that. Your thoughts as far as the Browns?
Yeah, I think it's tough to make an objective case for anyone outside of Chubb. Maybe Kareem Hunt, if the game script goes the opposite direction that Daigle believes it is. I believe the Browns' offense is a shot to be a lot better than people think. It just, how does it get divvied up? It feels like it's very spread out. Odell Beckham, even while he was leading in all those categories in the Browns team, he still was averaging a career low 3.8 receptions and a career low 53.2 yards per game. The Chiefs have notoriously been really good against wide receivers the last couple of years. They were really good against wide receiver ones last year. They were 7th in points per game allowed. They were 6th in receptions allowed per game. And you look at in 2019, they were even 4th in yards per target allowed to wide receivers. Last year, they were 5th. So they've been kind of sneakily good against wide receivers on even an efficiency basis, especially when you think about how often teams have to throw on them. But Daigle hit the kind of the nail on the head around Nick Chubb, is that Nick Chubb was still really good in that game last year. They were just scripted out of the run a little bit. He still averaged 5.3 yards per carry when he ran the football in that game, but he had just 13 carries. It was the second lowest total over his 10 games returning from injury. If the Browns can stick around and run the football more, that gives him a lot more upside. You're obviously banking on the game script to get you there. But if you want to stack this game, it's not hard. We already told you about the pricing. I mean, you can fit anyone on. You can easily fit in Kelsey, Tyreek, Mahomes with Nick Chubb. If you want to add Austin Hooper, you could even do that, and you have Kelsey be your flex. I mean, it's really easy to do that as well. I don't know how much rollover we'll see. Something like the Chiefs had against defending tight ends last year. They were dead last in red zone success rate allowed to targets the tight ends last year. It didn't help Hooper in the playoff game, but it existed. They did add Nick Bolton this offseason. I think he's he was a good draft pick at the time. I'm curious to see what his role will be with that team to start the season. But when you look at the Browns, I believe it's like collectively, we believe the offense is going to be good, and it could be even a lot better than it was to close last season when they hit their stride. It's just very hard to look at the individual components and say from a DFS stance, I want to play these guys outside of a game stack situation.
This is why, side note, I love doing this show with y'all because, and Reeves, I'm sure it's been on a lot of his shows as well, how much I've talked about the Browns and 49ers as the best bets this offseason because their regular season schedule is just so simple. And then we get back into week by week analysis, and it's completely unique. This is amazing. I'm just enjoying myself is all I'm saying.
So here's one of my quandaries. I think DPJ, Donovan Peoples Jones, I should make it plural. It's more than one person apparently, but he's 3K. He's still minimum on DK, but again, this is MME. You're running 150. You're playing the Million Makers, something like that's where it's a big payday up top. You're not, in theory, you wouldn't roster him in front of the aforementioned Rondell Moore, who's 3K, or Marshall, or Elijah Moore most likely, or guys that are right there, Callaway. But why can't DPJ, even the game gets in the junk zone? He's a guy, I think he's competent. I think he's a decent receiver. He's gonna be in the field a good bit. I'm not here to make the case. It's just the slate and the salaries, right? Daigle, it just sort of discourages playing these guys. But that's why maybe you're supposed to play just some random person like this because nobody else is going to do it.
I'm not going to play him, and okay. I could be very well wrong. I just want to say that out before I start saying my next spiel. But we know the Browns are a run-heavy offense. Even if you take out the weather-stricken games, and they had 3 of them last year where their offense was in shambles because, of course, the winds were 60 miles an hour at their face, or the rain was pounding the ball down every time Baker Mayfield lobbed it anywhere. They still average just 32 pass attempts per game, and you compare that to someone like Dak Prescott, who averaged 50.5 pass attempts per game in his 5 games. Someone like Patrick Mahomes from week 8 on averaged 43 attempts. It's just volume that you have you literally have to bet on and then bank efficiency. Otherwise, it doesn't matter anyhow. But to your point, I will say that if the game goes over, if you think the game goes over, then DPJ, of course, could make an impact, because also Beckham, we know, is injury returning, even though everything sounds good. Green light for week 1. Who knows what happens? Who knows if he's not limited? And then Rashad Higgins has also been dealing with a little leg injury as well. So DPJ has apparently outplayed Higgins anyways in the preseason. Beat reporters have raved about him every single day. And so maybe that's the case. Again, I'm not going to play him, but if in the 150s, I don't also do 150 lineups, perhaps.
I make a Chiefs lineup every slate. I don't care.
That's fair.
I mean, I at least make one Chiefs game stack regardless of the slate.
If you were to make one right now, I'm not going to hold you to it. Like, what would it look like? I mean, I could guess, but what would it look like?
I'm going to play.
What sort of run backs?
I'm going to play the 3 Chiefs and Nick Chubb.
Yeah. Okay. The 3 Chiefs being, I presume. Is that Kelsey and Hill with Mahomes? I assume. Yeah. All right. And
it's a rough front 7. Like, he's not going to get there this week, but I will say that, and it's such a small sample. So maybe, what am I doing? I'm just talking myself in circles here. But I will say that in like the couple of drives that Patrick Mahomes is available for this preseason, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, until his ankle injury, did play every third down with Mahomes. Like the way people wanted Antonio Gibson used is exactly how Edwards-Helaire was used. And so there's a little ceiling here, because that's the role he needs to have to become a top 5, top 6 running back, maybe even top 2 if Dalvin Cook doesn't get there. Who knows? But like, he was actually used that way when healthy. And the fact they cut Darwin Thompson tells us subtly he's healthy. So there's a little sneakiness there involved.
Daigle, was I just being silly? No, Hribar, was I being silly, or was Daigle being too nice here? Was that a ridiculous? What am I throwing out DPJ on week 1 when the salaries are so soft? He was just being nice to me. He was basically saying, like, what are you doing? That's a terrible thing to throw.
I did say I wasn't going to play him. I mean, that's
yeah. I mean,
that's as mean. That's as mean as I can be, Dean, because I love you. That's as mean as I can be.
Listen, DPJ
be as mean as you want.
He was a hot topic, all off season, maybe the game share. I mean, the Browns are a team that did not run a lot of 3 wide receiver sets last year. They were actually 9th in terms of rate of 12 personnel run. Now, that could have just been a byproduct of their wide receiver situation, losing Odell during the course of the season, not really having Donovan Peoples-Jones, step up through his rookie season yet. He was still a guy kind of getting his kind of NFL legs under him. Rashard Higgins played well. So maybe we'll see them play more, 3 wide receiver sets. This is the glory of week 1, right? Like, all of our priors are going to get smashed. We don't, because we think we're predicting this stuff, but it's a new season. The Browns could come out and play a lot of 3 wide receiver sets and not play a lot of 12 personnel. We believe that they still will, because it's in Kevin Stefanski's blood and the DNA of that offensive scheme, but you never know. I mean, those things can happen. I mean, so week 1, hey, it can always crush.
And again, Dean, this is why I like doing the show with you, because I am a mid to high stakes single entry player. I love putting decisions onto people because I love making decisions. I think I'm fairly average, at least at them. Whereas you're a 150 guy because you like putting your exposures in there. And so it's just completely different approach. And so like, I'm just talking out my ass. I have no idea, like maybe DPJ, so you are stacking in a way, 3 Chiefs. That's the one player you bring, even if it's 4 lineups. I mean, if you win with one of those 4 lineups, you still win money, right? Because that's the whole point. So like, you may have nailed it on the head.
I'm just thinking in my head, like, this is the kind of player you like in week 8, week 9, week 10, when you don't find anything in the 3K area. But again, it's a totally different slate. So it's probably goofy. And I should clarify, I'm not a 150 guy. I'm somebody like you. I love the single entry, the 3 entry.
I love them so much.
That's my favorite. Like that's kind of my wheelhouse. But I will be playing 150 on Yahoo this week because they're running that contest where it's $10 to jump in, no overlay, and it's a flat payout. So I'm planning on running 150, 100K to first, I believe it is. So
I don't know if that was a plug that you snuck in there, but if it was, good job, buddy.
We do have a sponsor for the show, but it's not Yahoo. It just kind of came up organically, which we'll get to.
We're gonna have to get a new one now. Yeah.
Just a shout out to Yahoo. I just and it may overlay. You don't get overlay so much these days in 2021 of DFS, and I've been around the years of overlays, 7-8 years ago, where it was just beautiful. All right, so whenever you can get it these days, you pounce for sure. Last game before we dig into our favorite plays at each position, and I'm behind on time. I have like my game clock managing skills is like
it's week 1. We're all learning. It's okay. We're excited to be back.
All right, let's throw this one to Daigle. You can talk about this. And last one, as far as our 3 games we're featuring, Buffalo Bills at Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh's getting 6.5 points. 48.5 is the total. Well, just from the start, the Pittsburgh side, like, and this is like a general thought, and like, I just like and I know this is not like an original thought, and this is like the way I've always been. Like, you want the quarterbacks that have legs, right? Sure, guys like Big Ben and Matt Ryan are going to have those, like, 300 kind of games, or 400 kind of games, but I don't know how to play the Ben Roethlisbergers of the world in 2021, where he's just immobile, and like, and every once in a while he'll sneak one in for a yard or two. That does happen as well, but I just have a really hard time clicking that button, and maybe that's on me, and maybe that's my fault. And I probably should consider those kind of guys. And again, with this kind of week where the salary, everything's kind of opened up, you want to kind of get one of the 6 or 7 guys that can run for 50 yards and run a couple of touchdowns in. So talk about the Steelers first, talk the Bills in a second. But is that your general thought as far as Big Ben as well? And of course, he's old, and who knows how well he can throw the ball these days. But yeah, I'm concerned.
Yeah, when I email you in a game the Bills are involved in, whether it's Ben Roethlisberger or another quarterback, just know I'm not talking about Ben Roethlisberger. I'm probably more interested in the other quarterback, but nonetheless, that means I'm interested in a game stack. And I think it sucks because DFS players are too sharp nowadays. I think this game's going to catch on, but this is sneakily one of my favorite overs of the entire week. And I don't even know if the Steelers get there. I just know their floors are safe, whoever you want to run the Bills offense back with. You asked about the Steelers offense. Deontay Johnson, team high, 26% target share and 10.5 targets per game in the 13 starts he either avoided injury or being benched for. Also, Najee Harris, the fact that Anthony McFarland got moved to the IR, like even when James Conner was healthy last year, Benny Snell averaged 7.5 routes per game. Benny Snell is not a pass catching running back. So we know Najee Harris is going to do that role. Not to mention Najee Harris, like Rich is the archetype guy, and Najee Harris is much larger than Benny Snell. So he also has, by the Steelers coaching staff spectrum, the goal line role as well. I don't know if he comes off the field at all, Najee Harris. And so, like, anytime you want to run a Bill stack, and as we know in a slate with Patrick Mahomes, Russ Wilson, everyone else you can name, of course, Josh Allen has the same ceiling, if not higher, if you want to try to go under ownership if he gets there and plays him. And you can legitimately run back Najee Harris, in my opinion, because he has 6 to 10 catches in his range of outcomes, because he won't come off the field in negative game script. And I think that's what happens here. I'm probably going to take some of Rich's points, but to be fair, Steven Nelson, Mike Hilton cut this offseason, and those are 2 guys who were in the Steelers' 3 starting corners from last year's nickel package. Bud Dupree, of course, went to the Titans, and TJ Watt practiced with the first time today, this afternoon, in the last 5 weeks. So I think they come off slow. I don't think the defense is respectful anyhow, as everyone else perceives, a shadow of themselves of last year. And that's why I kind of think the Bills just put the points on, and then we take the high floor Steelers player, whomever you want to pick.
All right, jump in here, Rich. Your thoughts as far as Pittsburgh. Do you have a favorite amongst their trio of receivers? Is it the same, Deontay Johnson?
No, it's not Deontay Johnson. Just from a matchup stance, I don't think he really suits where the Bills, kind of give up production. I mean, unless it changes, because this is another team in very much transition. I mean, if you watch the Steelers at all this preseason, they use jet motion on 60% of their snaps. They use play action 23% of the time. Those marks were 44%, and they used play action 9.6% of the time last year. It was an absolute joke. In the preseason, Ben Roethlisberger, in the little bit sample that we had of him, he used play action on 20% of his dropbacks. So double. The 20% is not league leading, but it's double what we got last year. And he was also under center for 38% of his preseason dropbacks. That mark was just 21% a year ago. This is going to be a new Steelers offense. We'll remember the way the Steelers ended last year. That's why Randy Fichtner got fired. Their offensive performance to be so one note and so mundane in terms of not being a creative offense on any level with the type of talent they had. That's how you get a coach fired. And we've already seen that they're going to do some different things this year. They add Pat Freiermuth. They're probably going to play a little more 12 personnel than what they played. We've already seen him work his way into like a goal line package with the first team offense. We've seen that already. They've showed it to us. He caught 2 touchdowns with the first team offense in the preseason. We know they're going to run the football more. And we know they don't have a good offensive line, but when you can do all the things that I just highlighted, jet motion and, play action, that's how you make a bad offensive line a little bit better. Is it going to make them elite? No, absolutely not. But it's going to make that bad offensive line look a little better and create some more splash plays than you would have gotten just trying to ramrod the same approach that they tried to do at the end of last season that got their coach fired. So this is a team that's gonna be a little bit different. We've already heard them say they're going to not play Juju Smith-Schuster exclusively in the slot last year, like he did last year. He's been talking about it basically to anyone that wants to listen. He was stuck in the slot 85% of the time last year. It was a career high. He had a career low depth of target. The only receivers that had a lower depth of target than Juju Smith-Schuster last year were Isaiah Wright, Isaiah McKenzie, and Deebo Samuel. That's not the kind of player Juju Smith is. Now, is he a guy that's going to consistently win downfield? No, he's not. But that's also, you don't want him just catching passes 6 yards beyond the line of scrimmage either, because he is a guy that can do some things after the catch as well. And we saw that early in his career. So he's probably going to play outside more. We know that Chase Claypool is a guy that is going to take a step forward in terms of usage than what he had last year. And he's an archetype of player that you just bet on, right? Like you it's like DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett. You just look at, like, offenses are always going to kind of glom on to the Chase Claypool archetype and explore that ceiling. And because he's that kind of alpha if he can get there. So I'm really curious to see how this distribution is play out in terms of snaps, where these guys line up, who gets the types of targets, because they're all good players and the offense is going to be completely different. I don't think we can roll over exactly what they did last year. So I'm really curious to see how it plays out. That said, if they do something similar, I mean, Deontay Johnson's a guy who has really never played in the slot in his career. 87% of his career snaps have been outside. The Bills, their weakness is basically in defending the interior receivers. So if that rolls over, it obviously would help a guy like Juju if he's in the slot more. It remains to be seen. Also, Juju has led the team in end zone targets. He's Ben's foxhole guy. Like, even as bad as he was, he gets the money looks. So, I mean, I would say if I would pick a guy, it would be Claypool just for the archetype. So if we want to stack this game, and the Bills are going to do their part, because the Bills aren't going to line up and run the football at all in this game. They don't care. So, I mean, if you want to,
that's why there are Bills. Yes.
Yeah. I mean, you're looking at it. I mean, say if I want to run a Steelers receiver, I'm probably going to rank them this week: Claypool, Juju, Deontay. Could totally be wrong, because no one knows. It's like I said, this is a week one situation that no one really has an answer to right now. It's a little bit of guesswork on our part.
I also like Claypool for the volatility. From week 12 on, he played only 62% of their snaps. He averaged a 16% target share. And then right before the wild card round, when they got decimated by the Browns, Mike Tomlin actually admitted to the media. He even said it was because they wanted to bench Claypool to rest because the rookie wall had hit him. And the rookie wall, of course, is like whatever you want it to be. It's a spirit. It's whatever religion you have. It doesn't matter. Like, it's whatever you literally believe in. And Tomlin admitted that he believed in the rookie wall. Whereas Claypool, though, when he was in there in the season, did catch, or at least he caught 10 of 31 targets, 20 plus yards downfield. But if he came off the field from week 12 on, that tells us if he's more of a full-time player. And we don't know. Rich even said, we have no idea what it is. But let's just pretend like you're right. Because if you play Chase Claypool in DFS, you have to pretend you're right. If he's on the field more and thus getting more downfield targets because he's a full-time player, that's a player I want to buy into, not only because his archetype, but because we want players with his archetype who get more downfield targets, the most volatile, but also the ones that pay off, because especially if they come with volume. And so that is a player I would love to buy into for sure.
Yeah, speaking of volume, Harris, 6.3K, like, he's projected to be a bell cow back for not a bell cow price. And it was also a guy, like you said, he can catch passes as well. The modeling after Le'Veon Bell, the good
it's
Le'Veon
a bad
Bell
price.
You don't like that price?
Are we talking about Najee Harris?
Yeah,
it's a bad price.
You're saying it's too high or too low?
No. I think everyone knows it's like, okay, it's too low, bad price. Especially, and again, they did it before the week one. So thus, like, Anthony McFarland, their only other option to catch passes, is now on IR. He's out for 3 games. It's only Benny Snell. They cut Jalen Samuels, who everyone likes to make fun of Jalen Samuels. But remember, we were on this show 3 years ago talking about Jalen Samuels as a fun back to roster in DFS, because he would get 11 carries and 11 targets, and we play him every single week for 4,500. No, Najee Harris, I cannot imagine a scenario, even if they're down by 24 points, where he comes off the field.
Yeah, I mean, and again, like, you're going to be saying, there's a lot of good prices this week, but his price seems a little bit egregious, especially if he's a back. You just don't get him. He stays as a back, doesn't come off the field, and he's going to catch passes as well on DK. And, like, you can only roster so many players, but he's absolutely in my cash game pool. Not a lock necessarily, but feels like an awesome play. You guys talked about it, Hribar. Let's talk about the Bills, Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs. That's going to be a lot of fun for sure. And they call plays like the way I play Madden. Like, I don't like running the ball in Madden. I just want to chuck the ball. And that's just what they do, man. So, and, you know, if they throw an incomplete pass, the clock is stopped. I love that as well. That's beautiful. You know, from a fantasy perspective, keep that game going as long as possible. Talking about Allen and Diggs. And is that one of your favorites? Is that your favorite, you know, as far as the quarter? We talked about Kyler, you know, with Hopkins. We talked about, the Mahomes with Hill. Can you compare the three, Allen and Diggs? Like, do you have a favorite amongst those three, or it's, you know, again, Sophie's choice?
Well, at the quarterback position, I think Allen is just an interesting conversation, right? Because we know the ceiling exists for him. But, you know, if you were to pick a spot for him to potentially let down, this would be one of the more objective spots, right? So as good as Josh Allen was last year, and he was excellent, he was in the MVP conversation, where he still ran into an issue was facing pressure. He went from 8.6 yards per attempt from a clean pocket to 6.6 yards per attempt under pressure. That was the 25th largest differential in the league. We saw the Chiefs both games. Spags dialed up blitzes and had him rattled. The Steelers have led the NFL in sacks in 4 straight seasons. They led the league in pressure rate again. TJ Watt, although he hasn't practiced with the first team in like the sense like Daigle said, he's been there working the entire offseason. He's been at every practice. It was called holding in, whatever that be. But he was there working. Like, this isn't a guy that just is coming from his house. Like, he's not Zeke and Cabo coming off and coming to play. Like, this guy's been there working the entire offseason. So I don't really think like his holdout is really kind of really anything to be part of like something I'm going to factor in. They do list some pieces in the secondary that, I mean, but like, we're not fading Stephon Diggs in this game. Like, I'll get to him in a second. So when these teams played last year, when the Steelers pressured Josh Allen, and they pressured him on 48% of his dropbacks, Josh Allen was 6 of 20 passing for 3.3 yards per attempt and interception. When the Bills kept him clean that game, he was 18 of 23 for 172 yards, 7.5 yards per attempt, 2 touchdowns, just like his splits were over the course of the season. It all comes down to if what the Bills were able to do in the second half of that game, where they kept him clean and they recalibrated their offense, because he was awesome the second half of that game. And that rolls over to this matchup. If they learn something, or if the Steelers learn something, the Steelers have shown us defensively multiple times that they're just going to do what they do. They're just going to come out and play their defensive style. Whether Keenan Allen's catching 100 passes against their linebackers, they're going to keep doing it. So I would trust the Bills to probably pull out more recalibration from last year's matchup and be able to apply it to this year's matchup in the Steelers defense. I believe they're just going to come out and play their style of football. Just depends if they can get home or not. But the Steelers have allowed just 3 quarterback 1 scoring seasons over the past 2 years, not last year, the past 2 years. Allen was the QB 14 when they played last year. They have allowed just 1 top 5 scoring week over the past 2 years. If there was a week to say Josh Allen is not going to get there, this is as good as an objective spot to say, like, all right, I can cheat on his ownership, maybe play some more Ryan Tannehill, because he's projecting to be a highly owned quarterback, because he just came out and threw 23 passes in the preseason against the Packers' second team defense and looked amazing. Didn't even let a ball at the ground, basically. And we know they're going to throw the ball over the yard. He comes with that rushing upside as well. He's basically their de facto goal line back. So I believe there is a little bit of variance with Josh Allen, and maybe he is a little higher owned than I'd like to see him this week. But Diggs, home run smash. This guy had double-digit PPR points in every single game he played last year, the only wide receiver to do so. He's like the wide receiver 5 on DK in terms of pricing. He's not even the highest priced guy. He roasted this team last time they played. He had 6 or more catches in every game but 1. He's just about as locked as you get as a PPR Gibraltar as you can kind of hope for. He is a guy I would absolutely be having in a lot of lineups this week, cash or tournament or otherwise.
And he obviously averaged 12.5 targets per game without John Brown last year. And I understand Emmanuel Sanders steps into that role, but it's not John Brown. It's not the deep threat that he offered as well. So I think there's still a ceiling we haven't seen just yet, assuming regression doesn't happen. But again, that's why we're happy to move on, because regression is the season-long conversation, perhaps not the week-to-week analysis.
Just took a peek at the chat over there on YouTube. What up, chat? Do subscribe, turn on notifications. So we're doing this every single Wednesday night, typically at 9 o'clock on the East Coast. Tonight we're doing it at 10 o'clock, but generally speaking, going forward, we're shooting for 9. We'll see.
And I suggest everyone just watch at 7 Pacific, or participate at 7 Pacific. It's a pretty great time, honestly.
Hey man, you're looking forward. You got dinner at what Gordon Ramsay's coming up. That's on layaway, right?
Yeah, even though my main event partner is literally passed out on the ground at 7:30 p.m. next to me. So yeah.
What a That's some Vegas rookie shit.
Yeah, trust me. I'm dealing with rookies, Reeves. I need you here. I need your heart better, and I need you here.
Unbelievable. Did he at least bring the round two or bring a drink for you or no?
Yeah, he's actually brought me 3 cucumber gins. They're all right here. So I appreciate them nonetheless.
And that's a quality drink to stay in the game because you're hydrating at the same time.
I know I'm not a rookie. I'm 33 years old. I'm not a rookie. I know what I'm doing. Yeah. We also got liquid IVs. Again, not a rookie. We're ready to go.
Hey man, enjoy yourself. I'm assuming you're staying there until Sunday, right? You're watching the game somewhere on Sunday?
No, like the regular season, Dean, the way it works, like there's no time. I have to take a red eye back Saturday night.
He's got games to blur.
Not only games to blur, but Sunday morning show, 11 a.m. for everyone listening, 1 p.m. Eastern if you want to tune in for the redraft conversation for start sit and like the biggest games of the week. And then also, not to mention blurbing throughout the day, and then the podcast at night where we recap the games that we watch. So it's back to the regular season, buddy. This is like the best vacation, and this isn't even vacation. Like I'm actually drafting and like doing business with friends. So
Amen.
It's still a good life. It's still a good life.
Yeah, the world's smallest violins playing for you, working.
Absolutely, I agree. Yeah.
We're gonna break down some quarterbacks we've not talked about, some of our favorite running backs, some of our favorite receivers. Before we do that, do want to mention Jock Market. Stop throwing your money away. It's time to check out Jock Market, the app where daily fantasy becomes a stock exchange. Buy and sell shares of stock, player stock in real time for real money. Download now for 100% deposit bonus up to $50. Using the promo code Grinders. That's GRINDERS. And get this, just to start, if you don't turn a profit in this very first week, Jock Market will cover your losses in the very first event. Download Jock Market in the app or Play stores, or check out jockmarket.com. Again, use the promo code Grinders, GRINDERS, for a 100% deposit match up to $50 on your first deposit bonus. All right, Hribar, quarterbacks, let's open them up. Jalen Hurts in Atlanta. I love that kind of player, in the dome, on the carpet. You can play him a la carte. There's some receivers that are super cheap. You want to pair him as well. Russ, I'm told they're going to let Russ cook once again. We'll see. Again, he's in a dome there in Indianapolis. Rodgers is back and playing football, not in New Orleans, unfortunately, but in Jacksonville. Love those dome games. Just not the same. Of course, he can still throw 4 or 5 touchdowns. We'll see. Your thoughts as far as some quarterbacks we've yet to talk about?
Yeah, and most of the quarterbacks we talked about are going to make up my core. I am a low quarterback guy, and a lot was going to revolve around Kyler Murray and Ryan Tannehill, but I do like Jalen Hurts a lot. He will definitely be in my pool because of the upside. A lot of people still are hesitant on Jalen Hurts, right? It's volatile. He was a polarizing player all offseason in fantasy football. Some people just don't believe. His final 4 games last year still look a lot from an efficiency stance, like Lamar Jackson's final 4 games looked as a rookie, and no one wanted Lamar Jackson. So there still is some upside here. Jalen Hurts fits the corollary of guys that have broke out in the past, like Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson, where people fade them because of their initial passing efficiency. Don't believe that kind of passing upside that those guys then showed existed. You get him indoors against this new Dean Pease defense. Dean Pease is an aggressive play caller defensively. He is going to blitz a lot. And when you blitz a lot, you're going to play a lot of man coverage with some subpar defenders. This Falcons secondary is not good enough to leave players on islands. They eerily remind me of a situation like the Jets a year ago, although they aren't as good against the run and don't have a good of interior front. If they're going to blitz as much with that secondary, you're going to see a situation where receivers really cook them. And they cooked them last year when they didn't even blitz a lot and they didn't upgrade anything. They're just counting on AJ Terrell to take a step forward. But the depth of this secondary is not good at all. I think it makes Devontae Smith a really good play in terms of giving up a big play. Maybe we even see like Isaac Rieger or Quez Watkins be like cheap stacks. But I mean, Devontae Smith would be the guy I would kind of claw him onto. But this scheme change for the Falcons, I believe, is going to be a net negative for their personnel this season. So I do like Jalen Hurts a lot this week.
Daigle, feel free to add on any of the guys we talked about. Anybody want to bring into the conversation as far as quarterbacks? I mean, according to Twitter, saying Darnold's is going to be amazing this year, and I kind of sort of get second chance, good spot in Carolina, which is worth talking about. It's a revenge game this week. I don't know how much salary you need to save, but for sure he's an interesting punt. I'm interested in Lawrence. I'm interested in Burrow. I don't know how much I need them. Fitzpatrick, I like, much more exciting with that offense there at Washington. Some guys to pair with as well. Anything there, do anything for you? Anybody that's worth talking about as far as quarterback?
Honestly, not really. The core we talked about, including Jalen Hurts, is who I will be on. It'll probably only be 2 or 3 of those guys at most. Darnold, of course, has to achieve 300 yards to get the bonus on DK to even be relevant in this conversation. We did this all last year, Dean. Or you remember, we talked about it. Just the fact that last year, the difference between the quarterback 10, who finished as Lamar Jackson, because the regression the Ravens hit, which is also why you should draft them all in redraft leagues this year. And the QB 20 was 5.2 points per game. Whereas the 5 years prior to that was only 2.1 points per game between the QB 10 and QB 20. And that's because of the rushing upside.
Yeah.
And Darnold doesn't have the rushing upside. So you have to hope for 300 yards. And although out of a world of 8 billion people, 99.9.5% can't name 2 Jet starting defenders, it just like, it's something you don't want to bank on, honestly, especially when the best rushing quarterbacks in the league, in my opinion, are in terrific matchups. So it's not really a situation I want to delve down because we learned our lessons last year, and thus we should correct ourselves and do the proper thing.
All right. Well, how about you open up running backs for us? Can you decide between, you might not have to, you can certainly run out 2 of these guys if you want to, because talk about how salary is pretty easy to make things work. Dalvin Cook, CMC, Kamara. Is there any sort of hierarchy amongst those 3 when you consider their specific matchups this week?
I actually prefer Dalvin Cook. Well, I should say prefer Dalvin Cook due to salary and everything involved, because last year in week 1, the Vikings' top 4 cornerbacks, their dime package, had 9 combined career starts. They were just a bunch of defensive scrubs they drafted in the 4th round on because they hoarded picks and then didn't make any of them the correct picks. And then also signed guys from UPS off the streets to play defense. Whereas this year, their dime package has a combined 282 career starts. They're far more experienced with a player with shutdown upside like Patrick Peterson, even though I understand he hasn't been really the island player you can put on the single best receiver on the opposing team that Patrick Peterson was in the past prior to his PED test. But then you take this experienced secondary, at least, and you factor in their front 7 that is not only top heavy, but rich with depth. Sheldon Richardson, Michael Pierce, Dalvin Tomlinson, Danielle Hunter's return, and then probably Everson Griffin. And it just seems like a nightmare for the Bengals, which is why I'm sad, because I thought the Bengals offense was going to carry some ownership, and it doesn't seem like it's going to happen anymore, given how poorly they performed in camp in the preseason. And again, everyone's just tuning in. That's what they heard about. So they don't understand the pace and the passing volume the Bengals had whenever Joe Burrow was under center. So if you told me to pick one, it is Dalvin Cook over Christian McCaffrey, given everything involved, especially for tournaments, since you pretty much have to pick one because you need the ceiling running back to win. Also, like, you want to go to Jalen Hurts. I think Mike Davis is a really good run back. He's probably not going to get there 17 games. He's a 7th-year, 28-year-old who has not broken out at any point in his career. So you're banking on a 2% probability to happen for 17 games. But for DFS, we only have Wayne Gallman, who they said they want to use, who Rich and I have in redraft leagues, by the way, who they said they want to use strictly on special teams. So it's basically Cordarrelle Patterson taking carries from Mike Davis. But more importantly, we expect this game to be an up-tempo game script, and Mike Davis will be the pass-catching back. And so that's why that's pretty much as low as I go among the running back rosters on DK, unless Rich has someone special for me that I haven't seen just yet.
Rich?
No, I actually was going to bring up Mike Davis because I'm not, from an objective stance in the matchup, it's not good. Like, the Falcons already have injuries on their interior offensive line, and the one strength of the Eagles is their defensive front. But when we make objective running back selections in daily fantasy football, we bring up the Al Smizzle 5 boxes, right? Like, is he a home favorite? Yes, he is. Does he have passing game usage? Yes, he does. Does he have goal line usage? Yes, he does. Is he going to probably project to see 20 touches? Yes, he will. So even though we don't like the matchup, he's just he objectively checks the boxes to look where we play running backs. So I think he's got to be involved. He's really cheap on DK at 5.4. That's where I would want to play him over FanDuel because he can still have a little bit of a floor. Everyone's going to talk about the top 3 guys all week. You'll hear about Michael Thomas and Split Stop and Kamara all week. We'll just skip over that. I will say we've talked a lot about DraftKings. I will say on FanDuel, I think James Robinson is a play on FanDuel a little more than DK. DK somehow had him at 6,400. even prior with Travis Etienne still on the team. So they were, I don't know if they were ahead, if we say they were ahead of that or it just kind of worked out that way.
Everyone loves last year stats. Everyone loves it.
FanDuel was a little different. He's priced down on FanDuel. I believe he's 5'9". I could double check and make sure he's 5'9". So I think he's a really good play there. I believe the Jaguars are, I mean, they could be sneaky. If the Jaguars lost this game, I don't think I'd be nearly as shocked as when the Jaguars beat the Colts last year to open the season. But everyone's worried about, James Robinson is going to lose touches. Sure, he always was going to. He had 85% of the backfield carries last year, 86% of the backfield touches. There was a point last season before he got hurt where the next guy, closest running back on the team in touches, had 27 touches. Like, that was never going to happen again. But he still is the most talented player between he and Carlos Hyde. He still has it in line to receiving work. I believe he still has it in line to goal line work. We'll see if that happens or not. I mean, he's not a guy I probably would play in cash because he comes with some little bit of leniency, but he is 5'9" there. It's kind of more suited to where you don't get all the wide receiver value. I think he fits in builds there. I am, for tournaments, interested in Trey Sermon. I don't know if we need to really get that cute this week. But this is, 49ers are 7.5 point favorites. It's climbing. This is a backfield we inherently want to buy in on, right? They're fifth in backfield touches in 2020. They were second in backfield touches a year ago. When the 49ers blow teams out in the Kyle Shanahan era, their running backs go nuts in those games. You think about Raheem Mostert in the playoffs against the Packers. You think about Tevin Coleman against the Panthers in that game. Also, when you look at Raheem Mostert, if Trey Lance doesn't fully play the package that he was going to play with this, hand injury, I think that does ding Raheem Mostert a little bit because you don't get those RPO free edge runs that he's going to excel on this year. Also, the other thing with Raheem Mostert is he has never been good inside the goal line while he's been in San Francisco, and the other backs all have been. And anytime he's been on the field, they've used another back inside the 5-yard line than him. He's converted just 3 of 13 carries inside the 5 with the 49ers. It's 23%. Other 49er backs since Raheem Mostert has been there have converted 53%, 18 to 34. I believe Trey Sermon is going to be the goal line back. And if Trey Lance is not going to be there to kind of get the snaps in those packages that we saw in that Raiders game in the preseason inside the 5, that opens up more of a path for Trey Sermon to get some more of those goal line touches. And I also just believe during the context of the season, it being week 1, they're going to preserve Raheem Mostert a little bit too. So in the second half, this game is in the 49ers favor. I think we're going to see a lot of Trey Sermon. It's a tournament play only, but he is dirt cheap on both sites. And I think it really sets up for him to kind of be a galaxy brain play.
I don't even know this Galaxy Brain. The way you explained it, actually, I hadn't taken that angle just yet. I love the angle, though. That makes a lot of sense.
I will say, this is, I ran the optimals before the show. It's Wednesday night. Things are going to change. Trey Sermon, this is FanDuel specific, popped up in 17%. So maybe that's not completely goofy, completely off the reservation.
It's interesting that he pops up in optimals because this is a week 1 thing where we just don't know, right? Like, you can't project his touches. You can't. We don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I would imagine that, it's probably obviously he's got a big number on him. It's a nice matchup as well, too. And, we'll see. That stuff may change. The other thing, in Smizzle's, 5 boxes that you check, is he good? Is not one of the boxes. I love how that's not, because he's not really, we don't think he's good.
He's a running back.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
And so he's the poster boy of, like, just as long as he gets opportunities, he's going to touch the ball 20 to 25 times, whatever it is. And also he's priced for a guy that, like, who cares, right? It's basically...
The whole preseason has been about keeping Mostert healthy all year long. So, like, even the narrative you want to paint makes a lot of sense, because what better game is there to keep Mostert healthy than one we assume they're going to win by 2 scores by, and they run Sermon out the entire second half. That it makes a ton of sense.
And Mostert's going to be played, I think, higher because of the excitement we saw at the RPO runs. But Mostert is one of those guys, like, he's got the higher ceiling, but if he scores, it's going to be like a tarmac run. Like, he's going to have a
50-yard run.
Yeah. And that's how he scores touchdowns. So, I mean, if it's just like a power play for a touchdown, I mean, I think Sermon's got a little interesting thing. Now, I mean, Lance could also just be more healthy, and we see those packages that he gets 2 rushing touchdowns and ruins everything in that game. But hey.
Is anybody of a take as far as Gibson being, like, 5'9" on DK, 7K on FanDuel? Like, I think you could mostly stay away from that, of course, extreme tournaments, but that doesn't make a ton of sense. But 5'9" on DK, is he going to get third down work? Does he need third down work for that price?
Yeah, he's a 4 or 5 box checker, right?
Yeah.
I will say that I actually came out more on the positive side this preseason of Gibson's usage, while everyone kind of went the other direction and said he wasn't playing third downs. Because the interesting thing is he was targeted on 5 of his 10 routes in the preseason. Last year as a rookie, he was targeted on just 23% of his routes. So now is he going to be targeted 50% of his routes every season? Absolutely not. But I thought it was still encouraging that they were getting him early down looks in the passing game.
Any other running backs that are worth a mention, or shall I move on and talk about some receivers and tight ends? My apologies to producer Devin, who's been working hard all day long. And yeah, it's been a long day for him. Hopefully he won't stick around too much longer. We got to get the people what they want. Week 1 ran a little bit long, but I think we're having a good conversation, an opening conversation as far as this week. Daigle, we good as far as running back? Shall we open up receivers? Oh, Daigle,
he couldn't make it.
The cucumber rum or martini got to him, apparently. He had to take a little detour. I thought he was looking after his roommate, who may or may not have killed over. But all right, what do you think here, Reeves? Receiver, obvious, the obvious ones like Adams, of course, he's good. I love McLaurin probably just as much as anybody. Ridley, for sure. We know how that works with him with that Julio Jones. If salary wasn't a thing, and it kind of sort of somewhat isn't a thing, who's your favorite top, optimal receiver that we've yet to talk about?
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about all the cheap guys on DK. You're going to see a lot of Marquez Callaway, and I don't even think the matchup really matters for 3,400. The Packers did allow the fewest amount of PPR points per game to opposing wide receiver ones. I don't think that, 3,400 for the target volume, you just suck it up, right? Like no big deal. I will say on both sites, I believe T. Higgins is pretty wildly priced, undervalued, 4,700 and 6K flat. I think he fits a lot of builds really well. He was 4th among all rookie wideouts in fantasy points last year. He led all rookie wide receivers in targets inside the 10. I still think he's that guy if they get down there. We know the pass volume is going to be there for the Bengals, even if they're not really getting over. So he kind of is a guy I'm really looking at. Just fits a lot of things that I want to do in a lot of builds. So he's a guy I'm looking at. I will say I got one dark horse that I think is interesting, and no one's talking about him. No one's talking about him. I'm going to see if I can start the trend this week, and it's KJ Hamler.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah, so KJ Hamler, a lot of people have drawn the corollary of Teddy Bridgewater starting is great for Jerry Jeudy. And it probably is. It's a lot better than Drew Lock because only AJ Green had a lower catchable target rate than Jerry Jeudy. But KJ Hamler is the actual Denver Broncos starting slot receiver. When he returned to a full-time role last year, he had 37 targets in the slot. No other Broncos receiver had more than 7. The entire rest of the team had just 16. He had the lowest ADOT of the guys, 10.9 yards. He's also got Ken win vertically too, like a Deshaun Jackson, like out of the slot. But he had the lowest ADOT of the two. And if you look at the catchable target rate of the Carolina Panthers wide receivers, there was a huge difference between Curtis Samuel, Robbie Anderson, and DJ Moore. DJ Moore is the guy who Jerry Jeudy ran most of his routes like last season. So I think that if there's a guy that actually kind of got the biggest bonus of Teddy Bridgewater starting, it's kind of KJ Hamler. Now we are in the 3rd or 4th potential target of Teddy Bridgewater. So this is not a guy you're going to play in cash, but at 3-1, I think he's leverage on all the other 3K receivers because they're all going to be way higher owned. And there's some upside here because the Giants also have really good boundary corners in Adoree Jackson and James Bradbury. Not so great on the interior, so we might hit a home run. It's another Galaxy brain play, but I'm going to start the season with some Galaxy brain plays because week 1 we don't know anything.
It's no worse than Peoples Jones, right? I set the bar pretty low, but
I'm not even saying it's wrong. I just did not expect to come to the Pick 6 week 1 show and hear about KJ Hamler and Donovan Peoples Jones. It's not even a Mitchell Trubisky week.
We're so thirsty. We're so thirsty.
It has been a while. I think we've all gone crazy from the off season.
Does Jen Cucumber sneak up on you there?
It came a little quick. Yeah. I had to run off for a second, but nonetheless, only one, nothing too crazy. I don't have anything like that. If again, it sucks that ownership will probably be flat, like Reeves mentioned earlier, but if not, I was hoping Elijah Moore would come in vehemently over rostered because then you could just run it back with Corey Davis. I like the matchup a whole lot. Joe Brady helped engineer a career high in passing yards with Teddy Bridgewater against, in hindsight, what was the league's toughest passing schedule, and now has Sam Darnold. And I don't know what happens when Sam Darnold throws it deep without Adam Gase, it probably goes 20 yards out of bounds. But I would like to see what happens when it happens, because it's going to happen. Whereas it did not happen with Teddy Bridgewater. There's a capability for a lot of splash plays, and if you have a run back option, and if Elijah Moore's the guy everyone's going to roster, Corey Davis, who had 10 targets on 23 preseason snaps, 13 preseason routes, is the guy I would love to use as leverage. And so it's hard to get leverage in week one. I understand that, but that's still kind of what I'm kind of eyeing here. As I think, like Reeb said earlier, he thought I was going to email that game because I think it's a sneaky over game. The issue is that I worry about the Jets carrying their weight in points because the Panthers defense has like stars. It's as if you built a Stars and Scrubs auction lineup in fantasy football between Brian Burns, Jeremy Chin, JC Horn, the list goes on and on. So maybe they're just better than the Jets offense and they stuff them out. But either way, I think Corey Davis is really interesting.
Is Michael Pittman good chalk or bad chalk? 4-1 on DK, 5-3 on FanDuel. Just again, a lot of guys are distinctly underpriced, but that Reeves, that price seems really, really good. And again, the optimals that I ran, and I hate to keep pointing to him, but like he is jumping in both FanDuel and on DK as a guy that kind of makes stuff work. Are you in on Pittman?
I think he's fine at 4-1. What we're looking for Pittman and where he could potentially be a trap play is you need to have significantly different usage than what we got out of him as a rookie. He was at the bottom of the rookie wideout pool in just about every type of target we care about in fantasy football. He was second to last among all rookie targets in deep target rate. He was fifth from the bottom of all rookies in targets inside the 10. And he was last in target rate in end zone targets, dead last. So we need a significant change in year two, and they could get that. I mean, he was a year one player. There was a COVID year. He was learning to get acclimated to the NFL, but also we need that usage to completely be different. I mean, watch the ghost of Zach Pascal do something again. I swear to God, every time the Colts are down a receiver, Zach Pascal does something and ruins it for us. But I mean, I'm fine with it. I have no pushback on Michael Pittman. He's probably going to be a guy I avoid because I'm just going to hold on to my priors and believe that he was overvalued for everyone's breakout choice anyway. So I'm going to dig in and be wrong.
Daigle, is there anybody else you want to throw out there throughout the show? Like Hamler is thrown out by Reeves. I threw out Peoples Jones. You want to put somebody in that level into that conversation that might be worth rostering this week?
The only other player that is also bad that I have to mention is Tyler Kroft. And maybe it's not even bad because the way the builds work in cash lineups anyways, if you want to play a min tight end, like he's the guy I would go to. There are other cheap options, but the fact that they released Dan Brown and Ryan Griffin and re-signed them 24 hours later for cheaper just tells you that they don't care about them. Like the Jets and Mike LaFleur are looking for their move tight end, and Tyler Kroft finished the preseason. I know Elijah Moore didn't play, but he still finished the preseason behind Corey Davis, second in target share, and Zach Wilson's first team snaps, and he's stone min at 2,500. So if that's the way a build goes in cash games, again, not tournaments, like that's a player I genuinely don't mind rostering at all.
Let's touch on tight ends just real quickly. Kyle Pitts on DK is 4.4K.
DK, man, they just want people.
I don't understand what they did. Yeah. Also, if you look at the Eagles Falcons props that DK just released as well, like they think that game's going to be 35 points combined. The totals and the player props are wild.
And when you look at this,
what's that?
I was asking, is there anything you hit? Is there anything you bet there, or you're still kind of waiting it out?
Well, no. Kyle Pitts' receiving prop is 41 yards as well. I mean, it's Kyle Pitts. Like, I don't know what to tell you. You should just run off. Jalen Hurts' rushing prop is 39.5 yards. Again, I don't know what to tell you. So you just go to the book right now.
I'm in the wrong state.
And the Eagles are a team too. A lot of people are going to look at what happened last year at the Eagles, right? But this is another team that had a coaching change that's going to change their philosophy, right? Last year, the Eagles had one good cover cornerback, and all they did was play man coverage. They just left guys on islands the whole season. They had the fifth highest man coverage rate. Jonathan Gannon, who Nick Sirianni brought over from Indianapolis, has coached under Matt Eberflus. He's coached under Mike Zimmer, and he's coached under Steve Spagnuolo. This team is going to play a ton more zone coverage than they played last year. And they should, because the personnel they had. So they're going to play a lot more cover two than they ever have. These linebackers that the Eagles have are not good. They did not upgrade the coverage linebackers that they had last season, which were bad. Rodney McLeod is also out for this game. He's already been declared out. So everything kind of lines up for Kyle Pitts to be really good in week 1. So we'll kind of see how that plays out. 4-4 on DK. This is the cheapest he's going to be all year.
Correct.
There's no chance he'll be this cheap again. He's going to be in the 5s pluses every week after this.
Also, Sirianni was an offensive coordinator for the Colts for 3 years, and they literally finished top 10 all 3 years in pace and plays per game, 1st, 4th, and 9th overall. So if that helps us that the Eagles are faster, like that also helps Kyle Pitts reach his egregious totals.
Reeves,
this game's going over. That game's going over.
It is, but here's what's funny, Reeves. It's getting steamed down, and I don't know why. Perhaps you should ask your boss who is betting the Eagles Falcons under, because it doesn't make any sense at all to me.
Wow, listen, my boss gives games out, and he did not give that one out.
Yeah, because your boss is good. Yeah.
One more question as far as Pitts. My understanding, I don't know much about him. I don't watch a lot of college. I kind of read everything else everybody else is putting out there, but he's just a tight end in name alone, right, Reeves? You talk about the coverage. Will he see a linebacker? Will he see a corner? Who's going to be covering him?
It's going to be all different. He's going to still play in line. Like people act like this guy's going to be lined up at flanker the entire time. Like the dude's still going to line up in line. They're going to do a lot of things with him. You don't take a guy at 4 that is an all-world athlete and can do anything on the football field and just let him pigeonhole into one thing. That's something Randy Fichtner would do. Something dudes get fired for, not guys like Arthur Smith. I don't think that matters. I think that whole Kyle Pitts as a receiver thing is like literally one of the things that matters the least of what I care about. It's
almost a summary though of this week 1 salary is you can get contrarian elsewhere, but don't get contrarian where like you don't need to be. And Kyle Pitts 4-1, you don't need to be. Like you just suck it up and you can be contrarian elsewhere.
Before we step aside and get out of here, let's I don't know if you want to like stamp on a player, or you want to stamp on a stack that you really like this week, kind of just something that you like in DFS, obviously. Hribar, I'll let you go first. And of course, let the people know. I mean, they know, but just in case they don't know, where they can find you on Twitter, where they can find you, where they can find all your other takes. We haven't talked about everybody. You can't talk about everybody, but give the people where they can find you and give them a hot take, a lukewarm take. What do you like this week?
Dean, I just Galaxy Brains, Trey Sermon and KJ Hamler. It's like gremlin time over here. You can find me at Lord Reeves, at Sharp Football Analysis. The worksheet's already out. I break down all these games. If you like the stuff, the cut of my jib, you get more of it over there.
Don't feed him after midnight. Don't put water on him. Daigle, same deal. Feel free to put your stamp on a stack, a stamp on a player, or just tell the people where they can find you. Again, they all know where they can find you, but just in case they don't, where can they find you on Twitter, your work, all that good stuff?
No hot takes, but I do want both of you and Devin, our producer, to move out to the Pacific time zone.
I'm not.
So we can all do this. To be fair, Cleveland is very cheap and much cheaper than Vegas. So that's totally fair, especially when you have 3 kids. Nonetheless, at NotJDaigle on Twitter, a good football show podcast you should subscribe to, because we just moved to 6 episodes per week. The 6th being the Friday DFS Building Block show, which, like the Sunday morning RotoGrinders show, much more information comes in by that time. We air after injury reports, and thus it then moves to the podcast feeds Saturday morning after we record Friday night. And then you can go to NBCSportsEdge.com, not only for my Tuesday waiver wire column, but also just for redrafted. If you're into that type of thing, use the promo code Daigle 10 on the homepage, and you can get 10% off our tiers and weekly rankings, which I actually have to do sometime this evening. Not sure what's going to happen. I'm not going to face my anxiety like Buddhist wants me to do and put Zeke in a situation, because I don't want to rank Zeke right now. It's going to be bad, and I don't want to rank him.
Well, I'm not going to force you to rank him. Just go out there, have yourself a good time in Vegas, enjoy the Gordon Ramsay and the cucumber gin or what martinis, whatever you're kicking back on. Have a good time.
All of it.
There you go. Thanks for watching out there on the YouTube land. Do subscribe, turn on notifications. Again, we're going to be doing this every single Wednesday night. That was Rich Hribar from Sharp Football Analysis. That was John Daigle from NBC Sports. I was Dean from RotoGrinders. That was football as well. We're out of here. Thanks for watching. Holler.